Howdy folks, and welcome to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon, and in this video I thought I'd do a little bit on Blood Bowl. It's been a while, but it is my first true love in Games Workshop's games, and they of course were very, very kind in sending me this new Chaos Dwarf team that we see behind us here. Some Forge World stuff, and of course the new Spike magazine as well. Glorious miniatures, so thank you very much to Games Workshop for that. I did think about doing some sort of product review or even just an unboxing or something, but honestly that content kind of bores me at times, so I just didn't want to do it. Really what I want to talk about is the actual rules. Maybe I'll do a painting tutorial at some point, that would be a bit more fun and engaging, but I just want to get into this roster because I've seen a lot of clamour in the Blood Bowl community on the whole, in Australia, New Zealand, all over the world, about this new Chaos Dwarf team. It's great that we have it. We've been waiting for the big hats for quite some time. I know there are many Chaos Dwarf fans out there, people that really love the style of play that Chaos Dwarfs have brought to the game since CRP, basically. But we're going to talk about this new roster because Games Workshop have been very bold in making a lot of big changes to this roster. There are some small ones, there are some big ones, but I just want to go through it and give my 2 cents. As someone who normally plays more Necromunda, I thought it was about time that I did get onto making more Blood Bowl content. So without further ado, let's go check this stuff out. Before we get started, please do like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, and keep those comments popping off down in the algorithms below. Also, I'd just love to give a quick shout out to Pauteroa, which is New Zealand's best Blood Bowl podcast, and a bunch of mates of mine, so do go and check them out on Spotify. Also, Down Underworld Denizens as well, which is also Australia's best podcast on Blood Bowl. So check that out as well. Whew, it's getting a bit clammy up in here, I must say. It's stormy outside, and I just had a flipping hot curry for dinner. So quite fitting, really, if we're going to be talking about Chaos Dwarves. Now, what I'm going to do here is just go through the new roster, talk about some of the changes that we have here, and you can discuss this down below in the comments as well, and we can get this conversation popping off, because I'd really like to know what the overall community thinks about some of my views on this as well. So let's get started. We're going to start with the most numerous positional on the Chaos Dwarf list, and this pretty much remains unchanged, and that of course is the Hobgoblin. The cost of a Hobgoblin is 40,000 gold, and they are movement 6, strength 3, Ag 3+, and AV 8+ as well. So they remain unchanged from the previous Chaos Dwarf roster. Nothing to worry about there, nothing to get too excited about either. They have no skills or traits. For skill access on a primary, they get general, of course, and for secondary, they get agility and strength. So pretty simple there. Note, no mutation access on the Hobgoblins at all. That remains unchanged. So absolutely nothing different about these guys so far. They are your bread and butter linemen in the team. They are the lineman position. They are cheap, disposable fodder. You're mostly going to give them dirty player. You're mostly going to give maybe one of them kick if you really want to go that route. And you're probably going to give a couple of them wrestle just to be sort of like extra safeties if you really want them to be, but really dirty player on a couple of them is really the only place you're going to go. You don't want them to be too, what's the word, too bloaty, I suppose. That is your Hobgoblin. Really quick overview for the Hobgoblin. Again, not really much to talk about. No changes there on this one, so the Hobgoblin remains unchanged. We then have the new positional, but I'm going to save that a little bit and talk about the Chaos Dwarf themselves. So in this new roster, we used to have 6 Chaos Dwarf blockers. We now have 4 Chaos Dwarf blockers. That is a big thing. There are 4 Chaos Dwarf blockers, and they have changed a little bit. So let's get into this. This is the sort of bone of contention for a lot of people. They are 70,000 gold, which I believe is the same as they used to be in the old Chaos Dwarf roster. They are movement 4, like a normal dwarf, strength 3, 4+ Ag. We've got a 6+ passing and a 10+ armor there as well. For skills, the Chaos Dwarf blocker still has block, but no longer has the tackle skill. So that is a big change. Tackle has now been replaced by a new version of Ironhard Skin. Ironhard Skin was a mutation that really only worked against Claw. Now, however, they've changed the actual skill. It means that the armor can never be modified by anything. That includes Mighty Blow. I believe that includes fouls as well. It's pretty good for survivability. And it's a really good thing to have on a team, particularly in league play, because it's going to keep your players alive longer. Of course, without tackle, we now have a little bit of a problem for those of us who played Chaos Dwarves for a long time. Having no tackle does mean that your likes of Amazons and other stunty teams are going to really have a field day against you. They can just dodge out of your, basing and stuff and just survive a lot easier, which is a problem because Chaos Dwarves kind of want to kill stuff, right? However, on the flip side of that, it does make you harder to kill. So that's changed the dynamic of the team absolutely in a massive way. So something to think about there. The last skill that these guys have, of course, is Thick Skull, which every dwarf has. So they're exactly the same as a regular dwarf, except instead of tackle, they have Iron Hard Skin. So it is what it is. In terms of skill access, they are going to get general and strength on the regular skill, the primary, and on secondary, they're going to get agility and mutation. So they still can get mutation. They did before and they do now. So you can sort of get claw if you really want to and combine that with mighty blow and stuff. But it's up to you how you're going to do these. But generally, you're going to build them in exactly the same way you did before with Chaos Dwarves, and that is giving them lots of guard and lots of mighty blow and perhaps stand firm later on as well. Other than that, though, you might want to go with some claw, but are you really going to be going for tackle on these guys now? Because now they don't get it for free. Of course, you're going to need to take it as a skill. They're only movement 4, though, and they're not really your blitzers. So, I don't know. Tackle, I'm not sure if I'm going to take it as a first or even second skill, because I think guard and mighty blow are much more important. It is what it is. Food for thought there, though, because tackle needs to be on this team somewhere, because now it doesn't exist. The next one is the Bull Centaur, the beloved Bull Centaur, arguably one of the best positionals in the game, always has been, always will be. It's still awesome. It remains completely unchanged. 0 to 2 of these guys. They are huge, by the way. The Forge World resin of those guys is absolutely chonky. They're 130,000 gold pieces. They're movement 6, strength 4, edge 4+, 6+ passing, and 10+ on the armor there as well. What I must say is disappointing is these guys don't get Iron Hard Skin. It would have been nice if every single dwarfish sort of player in this team did get Iron Hard Skin, perhaps even the Minotaur, but we'll talk about that in a minute as well. They don't. They get Sprint, Sure Feet, and Thick Skull, which is exactly the same as what they had before. They have General and Strength as their primary, and they have Agility and Mutation as a secondary, which is new. They didn't used to be able to get access to mutation skills. They now do. Does that really change how you build them, though? Probably not. The first skill you're going to get on these guys is block. It used to be break, tackle, sure hands, block, things like that. Really, you're just going to give these guys block as soon as possible. And then after that, I would say at least build one of them as your primary sort of like ball sacker, and maybe with tackle, strip ball, something like that would be quite nice. But I don't know. It's up to you whether you want to carry with your Bull Centaurs. Some people do. Some people carry with a Hobgoblin. Personally, I prefer the Hobgoblin carrier, I think. Even though I know Bull Centaurs are great carries, the trouble with that is it takes one out of the mix when you're on your attacking sort of play. It means that you don't have both strength 4 highly mobile players at your disposal because one is carrying the ball. So anyway, I'm getting into the nitty-gritty of things too much. That is your Bull Centaur. It remains unchanged. So really, the only major change we have so far is the Iron Hard Skin in place of tackle on those Chaos Dwarf blockers. Let's get on to the next positional. The next one, and something that is a little bit disappointed if I'm honest, because the model is fantastic, is the Sneaky Stabber, which is a new Hobgoblin positional. You get 2 of them on your team. The models are wicked, but you're just never going to use them. I'm just going to say that out now. You're just never, ever going to use them. The reason being they are 70,000 gold, which is incredibly expensive for what they do. So 70,000 gold, what you get for that is a normal Hobgoblin with normal Hobgoblin stats, except they're actually 1 worse on passing, so a 5+ passing instead of 4+ passing, and they come with Shadowing and Stab. So Shadowing and Stab, Shadowing is pretty much useless on a movement 6 piece. It's okay on the Dark Elf Assassin now that they're a bit faster, but you're still, most of the time, if you're playing competitive Blood Bowl, you're just not taking Dark Elf Assassins most of the time, right? These guys are pretty terrible. For 70,000 gold, just awful. General skills on primary, agility and strength on secondary. They're just really crap. And it's a shame because I really want to use the models. I'd probably use them for fun anyway, because if I'm just playing for a fun sort of game, then I'll use both of them and it'll be fun just stabbing people on the line. But other than that, they're and they really are, very, very, because, as soon as you park these next to someone and hope to stab them, the stab never comes off and you just get punched with armor 8+, you're going down. So it ain't great. So a disappointing thing here. Now, if we adjusted the cost of these guys to maybe 50k, I would definitely take both of them. They'd still be useless, but, you'd probably go for like maybe a movement increase to make Shadowing worth it, but probably not. But 50k stabbers, that would be okay, I think. But they'd still be kind of crap. So it is what it is. That is the Hobgoblin Sneaky Stabber. It's a bit of a shame, but I can't see anybody really taking them in any sort of competitive new Chaos Dwarf list. The next piece we have is an entirely new piece on this Chaos Dwarf team. Similar to the Sneaky Stabber, we have 0 to 2 Chaos Dwarf Flamesmiths. So where we lack 2 Chaos Dwarf blockers, instead we have instead of 6, we have 4. These guys make up the extra 2, or do they? So these guys are a bit different. They are 80,000 instead of 70,000. They're movement 5, so they are a little bit faster. Strength 3, 4 plus Edge, 6 plus passing, 10 plus AV, Brawler, Breathe Fire, which is a new skill, Disturbing Presence, which is pretty damn situational, and of course Thick Skull. It is a shame here that we don't have Iron Hard Skin on these guys, just for continuity's sake. It just would have been nice to have it on these guys, and they get General and Strength on primary with Agility and Mutation, same as the Chaos Dwarf blocker on the skill access there as well. So we need to talk about this new skill. The new skill is Breathe Fire, and it is as follows. Once per activation, instead of performing a block action either on its own or as part of a blitz action, the player may perform a Breathe Fire special action. When a player makes a Breathe Fire special action, they may choose one standing opposition player they are marking. On a roll a d6, apply a -1 modifier if the target has strength 5 or higher. On a 1, the player gets over eager, engulf themselves in flame, and is immediately knocked down. On a 2 to 3, the opposition player ducks to get out of flame and nothing happens. On a 4+, the opposition player takes the ball of fire straight to the face and is immediately placed prone. However, if a 6 is rolled, the potent pyro has taken its toll on the opposition player, is knocked down instead. After the Breathe Fire special action has been resolved, this player's activation immediately ends. So it's interesting. It's a bit like a stab, but there's a risk to yourself by doing it. Of course, you're a dwarf, so standing next to people and doing stuff is kind of fine. You're not a hobgoblin, so you're better at being punched, I suppose. But it's an interesting one. It's not very good. It's not going to come up that much, but it is particularly good against blodgers and ball carriers if you can get this guy to actually try and make a sack on a blodging ball carrier or something. Then it could be pretty good. With a reroll, it makes it even better. So it's definitely something that you're going to use. I can see it being used, you know, a fair bit in tournaments and stuff, and I think you could stack a few skills on this to make it more interesting as well. But yeah, having the extra movement on a dwarfen sort of player is always nice. It doesn't really make the team much faster overall, but it's a little bit of extra movement, I suppose, as to what they had before. So that's worth considering as well. Brawler, of course, it's not as good as block. I mean, if these guys had block, they'd be more worth taking, but having Brawler on them, you know, it's a bit of a shame. But again, it is what it is. They're 80,000 instead of 70,000 as well, so you're not going to be able to fit both of them in, and 4 Chaos Dwarf blockers, and 2 Bull Centaurs and stuff. It's going to be quite tricky to do that and try and manage your rerolls, because really, when you're building this team, you are going to need 3 rerolls at least when you're starting out, because picking up the ball, as you'll know if you're a Chaos Dwarf player, just sometimes never happens, whether it's your Chaos Dwarf, you know, Bull Centaur, or it's indeed your Hobgoblins trying to pick up the ball. Sometimes they just never pick it up. It's a bit like Khemri, really. The last piece in the puzzle here is the Minotaur. Now, Minotaurs have always been a thing on Chaos Dwarf teams. Some of the most competitive builds that I've seen don't take Minotaurs. Some of them do, usually with block or Juggernaut. But the Minotaur here has been changed a little bit from the previous iteration of Chaos Dwarfs. The one before that, though, is the same as this. So this has changed and then changed back again. So what we have here is 150 credit, gold. I'm so used to talking about Necromunda. 150,000 here, 0 to 1 of them. They are movement 5, strength 5, agility 4+, no passing stat, and 9+ on the armor. We then have Frenzy, Horns, Loner 4+, Mighty Blow +1, Thick Skull, and instead of Animal Savagery, which is a real loss here, I think Games Workshop missed a trick here, is we have Unchanneled Fury back again. So instead of this guy being more reliable and punching at Chaos Dwarf and not altering their armor value at all with that new skill of Ironhard Skin, instead we have a slightly less good Minotaur, really. I do think that would have worked really nicely with Animal Savagery. However, Unchanneled Fury is what we get here. Maybe Games Workshop will errata it at some point. I would like them to, because I can't really see myself taking the Minotaur as often now, unfortunately. The strength on the primary and on the secondary, we have agility, general, and mutations as well. So you can still get mutations on this. I don't remember if you could get mutations on the Minotaur in the previous Chaos Dwarf team. Correct me if I'm wrong down below here, but yeah, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I know you did on the Chaos one, that's for sure, but I'm not sure about the Chaos Dwarf one. I feel like you didn't. Anyway, that does mean you could give it claw now. You give it a bunch of stuff, or tentacles maybe, which is kind of useful, I suppose, on an unchanneled Fury one. I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. The team rerolls remain unchanged, so they are 70,000 gold pieces each as well. And for the special rules here, we have Badlands Brawl and Favoured of Hashut as well. Games Workshop are calling this team Tier 1. I am calling them not Tier 1, quite clearly. I'd like to know which tier people think these are going to be in competitively for tournaments, though, because, you know, I'm really not sure here. The eligible star players we've got here is quite a long list, actually. We've got Acorn the Squirrel, which could be interesting on this team. The Black Gobbo, Bomber Dribblesnot, Fungus, Glart, Grack and Crumbleberry, Hack Flem, Helmet Wolf, Thark the Unstoppable, who is just awesome, by the way. We've got Creek Rust Gouger, Lord Borak the Despoiler, Morg, of course, Nobler, Rashnak Backstabber, who is the new Hobgoblin star player there as well. We've also got Scrapper Sorehead, Varag Ghoulchewer, Withergrasp, Double Draw, which could be interesting on this team as well, and Zarg Mad Eye there as well. So there you go. Those are the 3 new Chaos Dwarf star players in the mix there as well. Overall, though, my 2 cents on the team is this. There's a few pros and cons to take away here. Firstly, the models are absolutely beautiful. I personally think that, particularly the Bull Centaurs, actually, the Bull Centaurs and Thark are the nicest Chaos Dwarf miniatures I've ever seen. They're better than any third-party manufacturer, that's for absolute sure. I said it, I'm saying it. This Chaos Dwarf team is the best-looking one on the market currently. I really do believe so. You know, you've got a nice bit of, like, the Hobgoblins look wicked, actually. I really like the sort of balance between looking a little bit cartoony and looking a little bit like the new swampy sort of orcs from Age of Sigmar. It's a nice aesthetic. We've got the big hats back. So the models look wicked. You know, there's no one's going to argue with that. The models look wicked. In terms of how they play and how they made the changes to the roster, again, I feel like it's a missed trick on the Minotaur, having Unchanneled Fury. That's one little minor gripe I've got. The main thing to talk about is no tackle on the Chaos Dwarves and the fact that you can't have a full 6 of them anymore. So that really is the main thing to talk about, and it does change the dynamic of the team entirely. The team becomes quite different. I can see them being pretty nice to use in a league because you've got these Chaos Dwarf blockers who are going to get developed and they're just not going to get killed at all because they're so survivable. You know, it's a different team to the Chaos Dwarf team that we had before. It's just a different team, and I think, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time before people get used to this and playing against it as well, actually, because, you know, you've got a few little tricks up your sleeve that you can do with the Breathe Fire and stuff that just gives you a little bit of an extra edge. Sure, no one's going to take the sneaky stabbers, but, you know, some people might at tournaments, and it makes things a bit more interesting. So I think overall, the new Chaos Dwarf team is just more interesting. It's more interesting than we had before. I could say that the old Chaos Dwarf team was a little bit boring. It certainly is boring to play against. And they were really, really powerful. A potent team, if you got the balance right, they were really, really hard to beat. This team, I don't think it's going to be quite as hard to beat. And I think most people will agree with me on that one. So that's my sort of overall opinion on the new Chaos Dwarf roster. Again, you know, don't shoot me for anything that I've missed here. I just wanted to go through this and just discuss some of my thoughts on the new roster because I have always loved Chaos Dwarves. I think they're really, really cool in the lore. The miniatures have always been great, and you know, these new ones are very, very exciting. I do feel like Games Workshop have overall missed a few tricks there, but I think, generally speaking, they are a more fresh and interesting team to use than the Chaos Dwarves of old. So I really do think that these changes are very welcome. They could tweak them a little bit, just a minor little tweaking here and there, and it's just a very different team to what we had before. It's similar, but it's certainly not the same. Anyway, do let me know what you think down below, and I'll be back with another video real soon. Peace out.